Hey, folks, and welcome into episode 19 of the Longhorn Mailbag. Thanks for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and jump right into this with our weekly True False segment presented to us by Rangers Dad. We are 13-2 in the past 3 weeks of predictions, so sounds like we got something going on right. Let's go ahead and try to add on 6 today, more victories. All right, number 1, Texas will score over 30 points. I'm going true here. The Longhorns, even last season, in arguably the worst game of Quinn Ewers' career at Texas, were still able to put up 34 on Oklahoma State. And the offense right now is rolling. They're averaging well over 30 points a game, especially boosted by their 57 points against Texas Tech. I know Mike Gundy's defense is going to show up. His whole team is really going to show up in Arlington on Saturday, but I'm still confident the Longhorns are able to get past that 30-point mark. All right, number 2, Texas will force 5 3-and-outs. I'm going false here. They forced 6 last week over Texas Tech, and that was a game that they completely dominated from start to finish. I don't think they're going to dominate Oklahoma State. I think they are going to beat Oklahoma State, so there's a little bit of an early preview of what Chip and I will talk about later this week, but I don't think this is going to be a dominant 50-point victory nonetheless, and I think Oklahoma State is way too good offensively to have 5 3-and-outs. They've got Ollie Gordon, a guy who's a Doak Walker finalist now. So I'm going false there. Number 3, a Texas running back will rush for over 100 yards. I'm going true here. In every single game since the Wyoming game earlier this season, a Texas running back has either run for over 100 yards or come up literally 1 or 2 yards shy. The only times they came up short in that span, it was Jonathan Brooks, 98 and 99 yards in the middle of the season. So the last 2 weeks, it's been C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue. Obviously, no Jonathan Brooks, but they've carried the torch. They've gone over 100 yards in each of those games as well. I think they will do that again. Oklahoma State's run defense, 102nd in the nation amongst all FBS teams. They average over 172 yards per game on the ground. Their opponents average that on Oklahoma State, that is. So I'm going true there. Number 4, Bert Auburn will make all of his field goal attempts. Well, I'm going true here too. And until I get a reason to believe that he won't, I probably will keep saying that. He's made his last 19, and he's put through a season record 28 field goals. So have to go true and believe in the hair and believe in Bert Auburn, who had a really nice Christmas suit this past week, by the way, as well. Number 5, Oklahoma State will be held under 250 total yards of offense. I'm going false here. Oklahoma State's got the 30th ranked total offense amongst FBS teams, and Texas's defense is really good. But I think Oklahoma State still gets well over that 250-yard mark. We talked about Ollie Gordon, a guy who has exploded onto the scene for the Cowboys this year. I think he's going to be good. Texas run defense, though, will probably do what they've done all year and maybe not make him as much of a factor. But then you look at Alan Bowman, and he has struggled. He's thrown 6 interceptions as opposed to 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. But he's also thrown for more than 225 yards in each of those games as well. So this is an Oklahoma State offense that I think will get over that 250-yard mark. But I'm very interested to see that Ollie Gordon versus Texas defensive line matchup. That's going to be where this game is won, I think. And last but not least, number 6, Arch Manning will play in this game. I'm going false here. I think the only scenario where Arch Manning plays is if Quinn Ewers gets injured, and I'll never predict injuries happening, obviously. So I don't see the Longhorns getting a 50-point lead in this one like they did against Texas Tech. So that's a false from me. All right, questions this week. Number 1 comes from DCW. Your thoughts on Texas's college football playoff chances. So I talked a little bit about this in 3 thoughts, and, most of it is going to come down to what happens on Tuesday, what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of the last week. Interested to see where Ohio State falls into the mix. Does Texas stay above Ohio State? Does the committee see Texas, as a better one-loss team than the Buckeyes? And has Texas now done enough to jump Oregon? Because the Longhorns and Ducks now have one comparable opponent. Oregon beat Texas Tech by 8. Texas beat them by 50. So those are two points there that I'll be keeping an eye on. But I think at this point in time, and really for the past couple of weeks, I think you can make the same argument that Texas has had a better resume than Oregon. But if we're talking about the eye test, then you could argue that the Ducks have put teams away that they should, whereas the Longhorns have at times struggled this season. So I think that's what's keeping Oregon ahead of Texas coming into this Tuesday. The biggest thing for the Longhorns, aside from obviously winning the Big 12 championship on Saturday, is Louisville defeating Florida State in the nightcap and the ACC championship on Saturday as well. A one-loss Seminole team without Jordan Travis would absolutely open up a spot in the top four, and it would probably give the committee a chance to breathe a huge sigh of relief because there's a disaster scenario waiting. Not necessarily a disaster, but a very difficult choice awaiting if Florida State wins. They obviously have to be in because they're undefeated ACC champions, I would think. But with the other three spots in that scenario, if Florida State loses, the other three spots in that Florida State loss scenario would be your Pac-12 champion, Michigan, barring a massive upset to Iowa, and the SEC champ, I would think. So I just don't see Ohio State making it back in that scenario. But we'll find out what the committee thinks about where the Buckeyes stand on Tuesday night. Now, here's the difficult scenario that I mentioned. If Florida State wins, they're in 13-0. ACC champs. They should be at least. And then the Longhorns should hope that Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game so that the Longhorns could argue their case of hey, we've got the head-to-head win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa by double digits. And if on-the-field play matters, which it should, that should be enough to get the Longhorns in. But the question there would be, would the committee swallow not having an SEC team in the college football playoff? Because here's how that would shake out. It'd be Florida State, Pac-12 champ, Michigan barring a loss to Iowa, and Texas. So the argument there is the final teams would be Texas, Alabama, Georgia, because they're all one loss. So would Texas get in because of the head-to-head win over Alabama? Would the SEC miss the playoffs entirely? I guess we'll have to find out where everything stands on Saturday and Sunday, and especially Tuesday when the newest rankings come out. So it's getting into a tight race, but I'm sure Longhorn fans certainly prefer this kind of stress as opposed to being 5-7 like they were 2 years ago. All right, and to cap things off, just some quick hitters here. ESPN released some schedules hints for the 2024 season for Texas when it comes to where the Longhorns and when the Longhorns will be playing in the 2024 season, their first year in the SEC. Texas and Texas A&M's first game together as members of the SEC Conference is set for November 30th, 2024 at Kyle Field. That's obviously the big takeaway, not being played on Thanksgiving or Black Friday, but on that Saturday. So it'll be a rivalry week game on Saturday for the Longhorns and the Aggies for the first time in a long time. And then Georgia will play Texas in Austin on October 19th. And finally, Texas will travel to play Arkansas on November 16th. So that's all the information that ESPN released yesterday in their 2024 schedule, somewhat released. They only released a few games for the SEC teams, but some good hints and a good time to know when that Texas A&M game is, and it stays kind of in that Thanksgiving week. Obviously not on Thanksgiving or Black Friday like it used to be, but it's back, and I think that's what Longhorn fans wanted the most. Should be a lot of fun in College Station. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Longhorn Mailbag. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you're the first to know when new content heads your way. For the rest of the crew, I'm Tommy Yarsh. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.